93 Boxing, back with another video. Keith Thurman is saying that Errol Spence has been exposed by Kell Brook. And you know what? I already made a video saying that Errol Spence is a real G. I rate Errol Spence as a fighter. I think he has flaws, but he can box pretty well, decently. There are better boxers than him. But he can break people down really well. He's very strong. He's conditioned. He's tough. He takes a good shot. He has a good amateur background, so he's probably seen many different styles. His experience underrated. You could say that he doesn't have too much experience apart from Kell Brook, but even if you take Kell Brook away, right? Errol Spence sparred some good fighters. Jamel Charlo, I think he sparred him, and Jamel Charlo's a bigger guy than him, stronger guy than him. I heard he spars heavyweights as well. It's experience, right? He sparred many different guys. He sparred Floyd Mayweather Jr., and what more experience can you get from that than that? Like, that's probably the most valuable experience you can have as sparring, like sparring Floyd Mayweather Jr., the best fighter of our time. Keith Thurman is saying Errol Spence is exposed. Now, even though I think Errol Spence is a really good fighter, I think he has flaws, and to a certain extent, what is exposed? Being exposed, what is that? From what it seems like, being exposed, right? I feel like you can still be exposed even if you don't lose. I genuinely think that. I feel like being exposed means your weaknesses are being exposed. Like Kell Brook exposed some major weaknesses of Errol Spence, and he kind of did. Errol Spence is hittable. Errol Spence is he can be a bit lethargic and slow. And yeah. And Kell Brook, Keith Thurman, right? He's got a lot more power. So Errol, in a way, but before I get that way, in a way, it seems like Errol Spence used to be this dominant force at 147. Now, after watching that, to be honest, he don't look so dominant. At least not in my eyes. He doesn't look too dominant. I mean, he dominated Kell Brook, don't get me wrong. And he might dominate who knows, he might dominate everyone. But he doesn't look as dominant as he did before. Kell Brook was getting the better of him every time Kell Brook threw. Every time Kell Brook was doing his work, doing his thing, he was getting the better of Errol Spence. Every time Kell Brook was throwing punches, he was getting the better of Errol Spence. It's almost like that, right? Kell Brook was able to back up Errol Spence, and it shows that when you step up to a higher level, things get difficult, but that doesn't mean anything. Keith Thurman got exposed as well, so I don't know why he said that. I agree with him, but at the same time, anyone gets exposed. We've seen Keith Thurman looking like shit against Luis Collazo. We've seen Keith Thurman not be able to stop Leonard Bundu. Keith Thurman hasn't had a knockout since the Luis Collazo fight, and that was a bullshit stoppage anyway. Luis Collazo quit. That's another video I need to make. It's not only British fighters that quit, which some people are trying to say that in the YTBC. So yeah, man, I think Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence is a really good fight. Keith Thurman. People are overlooking Keith. I think some people are overlooking Keith Thurman. And one person commented saying that, oh, Keith Thurman won't even beat Kell Brook. You're just an Errol Spence hater, because I mentioned that Keith Thurman will be a good fight for Errol Spence. I think Keith Thurman might beat Errol Spence. And initially I thought Errol Spence would beat Keith Thurman. I was thinking he probably would beat Keith Thurman, but Thurman might just actually beat Errol Spence. Thurman, in many ways, is not as skilled as Kell Brook. Doesn't have the best jab. Doesn't have the best straight, right? His right tends to loop up and shit. But Keith Thurman's a little bit faster. I think Kell Brook might be able to beat Keith. I don't know, man. Actually, yeah, Kell Brook might be able to beat Keith Thurman. We don't know that, but I think Keith Thurman will have more success against Errol Spence than Kell Brook, because Kell Brook is a little bit harder to hit. Well, actually, not really. I don't know, man. I don't know. But I think Keith Thurman and Errol Spence is a good fight, because Errol Spence did take Kell Brook's shots. But Keith Thurman's shots, I think he hits way harder. We've seen how it impacted Sean Porter compared to how Kell Brook's shots impacted Sean Porter. They both hit hard, but Keith Thurman, he's got speed as well. He's got speed on top of more power. So, and foot speed, Kell Brook might have a bit better foot placement in the ring, but I think Keith Thurman has foot speed, and foot speed can get you a long way. He can move around. Kell Brook wasn't moving around the ring well enough. Keith Thurman can suddenly go backwards, suddenly come forward, come with some hard shots. And if Danny Garcia respects Keith Thurman's power, I'll be shocked if Errol Spence walks through almost, and he's not gonna walk through. He never walked through Kell Brook's punches like that, but he kind of respected his punches, which you should. I mean, otherwise you're gonna get knocked out. And I think he definitely respects Keith Thurman's power, and it'll be quite interesting to see how he is able to cope on that pressure. Like, not that, like, knowing that this guy can knock you out with one shot very easily, like, if you're not careful. Keith Thurman is pretty fast. He's a lot more experienced than Kell Brook, I feel, overall. And, I mean, I just think Keith Thurman has faced pressure fighters. Like, here's the thing, right? Kell Brook was able to nullify Sean Porter's pressure by holding, right? Keith Thurman doesn't hold, but he was still able to deal with Sean Porter's pressure, and I feel like Sean Porter was a more improved fighter against Keith Thurman. I genuinely feel that way. So I think Keith Thurman, I do think him being an American fighter, even though he doesn't have the best inside game, might have a better inside game than Kell Brook, just because UK fighters tend to be better with in UK boxing, we're told more with the jab, right hand, keeping it long range and stuff like that. I mean, that's what I've seen in a lot of gyms at least. And then, one guy I know, he was from Detroit, came to the UK, and it's kind of different. Like, it's pretty much the same thing, obviously, the boxing gyms, but it's a bit more different. Inside game is worked on a lot more in the gym, in the US gyms. It's a bit more pro in there, but Kell Brook also has better foot placement, better jab, better right hand, better timing maybe. But Keith Thurman moves fast, and Errol Spence doesn't like hitting a moving target. That's something I've noticed. And Keith Thurman moves way more than Kell Brook. Way more than Kell Brook. I want to see how that does. He also moves forward more than Kell Brook. He has faster feet. And it'll be interesting to see how Errol Spence deals with Keith Thurman, or how Keith Thurman deals with Errol Spence. Let me know what you think. 93 Boxing, I'm out.